Hello everyone, this is Eagle Owl. I want to make a video on the different conditions that you can carry your gun in, and what is my preferred condition to carry your gun in. Um, so I'll start by showing you the different conditions that you can carry a gun in. Okay, so I have what's called double action mode. Okay, I've already checked the gun once, but you can never be too sure. um, they have what's called a double action mode. In a double action mode, there's no tension on the coil spring inside here. It's not already, the slide's not drawn back. There's no kinetic, there's no tension on it. So in a double action mode, each time you pull the trigger, try to show you, I'm left-handed, but I gotta show you with my right. Each time you pull the trigger, it takes a relatively long pull and it takes a decent amount of force. So there's really no accidentally pulling the trigger back. If you pay real close attention, it takes a long pull and the amount of resistance is, like I said, heavier. Then you got this condition that's called single action. Now in single action, you've drawn your slide back and you've put one in the chamber, and there's a lot of kinetic force on the coil spring. Let me show you. Now, there's a bunch of force in here. The spring is under pressure and it wants to be released, but it can't be released until I pull the trigger. In a single action mode, when you pull the trigger now, I'm squeezing it much lighter than in double action. Watch, here's single. Now here's double. Single, double. Now I don't know how well the camera shows it, but when I'm doing the double action pull, it's twice the difficulty level as far as how hard I'm pulling the trigger. In single action mode, it's much easier. And a lot of people have this mentality of they never keep a bullet in the chamber. By chamber, I mean barrel. They never keep one in the top because they're afraid if they keep a round in the top that they're going to have a mishap. They're going to accidentally shoot something. And this is, I'm going to say this is a heavily biased opinion because it's what I believe is the best method. I always keep a bullet in the chamber. Let me explain the differences in real world scenarios and how you carry it. If you don't have one in the chamber, you got a magazine in the bottom, and you don't have one in the chamber, you pull the trigger, nothing happens because you haven't sent a bullet up into the top. Now, during a time of intense stress, your body gets pumped full of adrenaline, and your brain loses the ability to focus a lot of times on minute details, and your fine motor function, the ability to do more detailed, intricate work, that is greatly reduced also. But if a threat is suddenly coming after you and you don't have one in the chamber, not only do you got to take it out, now they could be 10 feet away, they could be rushing you with a knife or a baseball bat in their hand, and they could be up on you in like 2 whole seconds. Not only do you got to have time to draw your gun, but you got to draw it, crank the slide back, point it, and then pull the trigger. The time that it takes you in an immediate threat scenario to crank that slide back and then pull the trigger, you're losing precious time, because in an immediate threat scenario, the amount of time you need to react is based on milliseconds. It's not based on, well, I got 3 seconds, well, I got 9 seconds. It's more closer to milliseconds. When you keep a round in the chamber, now all of a sudden you're skipping that step. Basically, you're needing just enough time to draw it, point, and shoot. So it's kind of obvious that you're saving time. And my mentality is, you know, the trigger is what makes the gun fire. So you don't ever squeeze the trigger unless you know you're doing it under a safe scenario. Unless you've done like I've done and you've taken the mag out, you've drawn it back, you visually inspected inside. So once you know, like anytime I handle my gun, the one thing I'm not doing, if I just suddenly grab my gun for the first time today and I'm handling it, the one thing that I'm never doing is just putting my finger in the trigger guard and pulling it. Not until I've went through the thorough process of checking its status. Once you've got that mentality, nothing you do in normal everyday life is going to make you accidentally put a finger inside the trigger guard and accidentally squeeze back. And then the thing is, when you put a round in the chamber and it's on that single action mode that I talked about, where you push it much easier and it goes off, well, the way most modern semi-autos are designed nowadays, and watch closely, you pull it back, they have an external safety on them. When you take that external safety, on many guns, it's got either a decocker lever or an actual safety lever, and when you move it to the other position, it actually drops the tension on the firing spring. So you'll have a bullet in the chamber and it'll be in double action mode, which takes more force. So when you have a gun that's designed that way, that's a really good setup. So anyway, those are some of the different modes to carry a gun in. There's another one which I didn't mention yet, and it's called, people use the term cocked and locked. When you have a gun with an external hammer on it, some people like to have one in the chamber, tension on the spring, and then all of a sudden that hammer's back and it's under force. It's wanting to fall forward, but it's being held back. And so they got the thing, everything is under tension, ready to go forward, and then the only thing they do is put their safety on. For me, that is the absolute worst condition to carry the gun in, because everything is just aching, like a runner at a starting gate. Everything is just aching to go forward and be released. And the only thing stopping it is, well, I mean, you got the safety on. So people who carry it that way, their mentality is you draw, take the safety off, and then pull the trigger. And another problem with that is remembering in the heat of a moment when you're being bum rushed, not only do I got to draw at this person that's charging me, now I got to hit the right button, take the safety off, and pull the trigger. And people don't always remember that. Your brain remembers the simplest things. Your brain knows you got to point it at the threat, and it knows you got to pull the trigger, but it may forget to take the safety off. And there was a video years ago where a guy owned a jewelry store, and he knew a guy was being suspicious, and he was prepared, and his gun was right underneath the counter, and he seen the guy draw. And so the guy that owned the jewelry store, he pulled his gun and he aimed it at the guy, and he pulled the trigger first. So he would have won that. He would have shot the intruder first, but in the heat of the moment, he neglected to suddenly tap that safety. Here's the safety on. I don't like where it is on my gun because I'm left-handed, so I'm not pushing it down with my thumb like you would. I got to reach a long finger across here. But anyway, in the heat of the moment, he drew and he neglected to crank the safety off. And even though he tried to pull the trigger first, the bad guy was able to successfully fire rounds first. And because he never did remember to take the safety off, that bad guy shot the store owner in the chest 6 times. So that's why I'm opposed to all the other carrying methods. And so, like, just to reiterate and to sum it up, put one in the chamber. Got one in the chamber. The safety is not on. It's in fire mode. If you got a gun with a decocker lever, which this one don't have, you can push the decocking lever and you hear it's releasing the tension from the spring. And so you got one in the chamber, and the very first pull takes more resistance. That is, practically speaking, that is the perfect scenario to carry your gun in. And there are many, many experts in the world that will tell you that that is the best state to carry your gun in. There's lots of people in the police industry or in the like tactical units and military that'll tell you, you know, that's the way they prefer to carry their gun. But that's absolutely the way I prefer, and that's the way I'm always going to carry it. I don't know what else to say on the topic other than, in my opinion of experience, that is the best way to carry it. So, one in the chamber, safety not on. If you got a decocker lever, or some guns have where the safety itself, you push the safety to a certain position and it will remove the tension from the spring. That's the best way to carry it. This is Eagle Owl. Thanks for watching.